Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethics. And it is me, Connor Bromley. It is Taff, AltEnding. We are here to talk about some of our favourite Wear-Tyne Derby memories. I know that the media likes to call it the Tyne Wear all the time, but we will call it the Wear-Tyne Derby, particularly when it's Sunderland for the game. I presume that's how the wording works. Does it go with whoever's at home goes first? Is that how it should work? I don't know. But yeah, we're both going to pick out a couple of games.
I mean, I've always called it Tyne and Wear just because that used to be the postal county, and just because it was alphabetical, it seemed like that was the standard. But I don't mind, whatever.
I just go Wear-Tyne just because I feel like we should be first.
It's the home, yeah.
I would do it though if it was at St James's. I would flip it to Tyne Wear. I just think when it's at the stable, it should be Wear-Tyne because you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I get it. Home, yeah.
So we're both going to pick out a couple of games anyway. Now, obviously, there is a wee bit of an age difference between the two of us, so maybe you'll go a bit more historic compared to me. Mine will probably be post-millennia. Yours, you may have some pre-millennium, maybe. Who knows? But we're going to talk about some of our favourite Derby memories and moments. I've picked out a couple of games, but I'm sure we'll talk about more stuff. So, do you want to start? Do you want to go through your favourite or one of your favourite Derby Day moments or games?
Yeah, I can do. My absolute favourite is, I think, the second 2-1 when we went back up at St James's Park. That's what, 2000, I think. We won 2-1.
August 2000,
we won there.
I think.
Yeah, it is. And they opened the scoring after 4 minutes, and we came back. Hutchison scored, and Niall Quinn. And that was the first time I went to a game at St James's Park, and that's why it's apart from the epicness of what happened that day, but that's why I remember it. Why it's my favourite, because I was there. We were on a sealed police escorted bus convoy. There were like 50 odd buses that left from Sunderland, and we were all escorted in, and then we all had to get on the buses and we were all escorted back. I was on bus number 1. We were the first people back, and we were cheered back into Sunderland when we came out of there. So it was great. And I was quite young at the time. I was working in the ticket office. So we all got out the Colliery Tavern and tried to have beers and pile across. But it was amazing because we'd won there 2-1 in the rain the year before. They were having their stand redone. I think Hullett was their manager, wasn't he? And Shearer didn't start. He didn't start the game. Yeah. So they were in a right mess the year before. And then all of that, they lost. They didn't expect to. And then the next season, they're all a bit more sorted and a bit more sensible. Bobby Robson's their manager, and they all think they're going to be decent. Shearer's back in the team. And we went there and did the whole thing again. And I remember distinctly we were 2-1 up. Kevin Ball nearly put the ball in from 45 yards.
You've got your memory different.
It's a different game now.
Kevin Ball's
the year before, is it? Yeah. Oh, right.
Because Kevin Ball left to go to Burnley.
There you go. Getting mixed up. The years are catching up with me and confusing me.
Yeah.
But this was
the one where Shearer missed the penalty.
Yes. I remember that moment because I was with a friend of mine and we were like in the 4th row up in the gods. And when they awarded the penalty, everybody was like this at the time, just sort of said, oh, well, look, a draw here, that's pretty good. I'd take that because Sheeran never misses a penalty. And I don't think he just didn't. And I cannot imagine the magnitude of that moment weighing on him to have forced that miss. Because, Sorensen guessed the right way and saved it, but it wasn't a great penalty. And the whole thing was brilliant. It's brilliant.
Do you know what's interesting about that is Shearer did a bit on, I think it might be on the Rest of Football or a BBC thing, and he was talking about that game and he was talking about his worst moment, and I think this was it for the missing the penalty.
Yes.
But he'd said in the video that he skied it.
No.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? How obviously, because I don't think he would make that up. Yeah, I don't think he would make up that you skied it. I think he obviously just thinks that he skied it and gets it mixed up. But isn't it so weird that it's such a monumental thing you would get mixed up in your head as to how you
give him a bit of grace. He probably hasn't watched it back very many times, has he?
That is very, very true.
But it doesn't end there. I mean, that was magnificent because we all assumed when the penalty is awarded, Shearer hasn't missed. That's it. We've got a draw. So we're epic celebrations when that save went in. And then I was on the first bus back to Sunderland, and we went out in Sunderland that night, and the players came back to Sunderland, and they all ended up in Idols in the corner. I don't know if you were even old enough to remember Idols, the bar.
Your volumes went. Yeah, your microphone's weird.
Oh, do you remember Idols in Sunderland, the bar?
Uh, no,
No?
that is before my time.
Is it really? Dear me.
I think so.
So it used to be on the corner opposite the Peacock, which was called something completely different back then. But all the players came into Idols that night after the game. And I remember people being behind the bar and all sorts of other stuff. It was great. I loved it. So I just remember that night. It was fantastic. It was amazing. It was amazing. So that's my first big memory, partly because I was there for that epic game. And I've never been back since to St James's. So has to be in there.
Yeah, has to be right up there as the number one. The one that I'm going to pick out first is actually one that I wasn't there. So I was at the time, I just told you before, I think listeners will know, I had a year where I lived in Atlanta. So I was living in America this year, 2013-14. And I was actually on a skiing trip that weekend. So I was in the middle of the mountains. I don't even know what the mountains are. Might be the Appalachian Mountains. Anyway, I was in the middle of this mountain range skiing. I hate skiing. Went there, never been skiing before. Worst experience of my life. Never go skiing again. Can't ski. Refused to ski and would never do it again. It was awful. It was also fake snow. And I don't know if that didn't help, but hated skiing. Anyway, we gets there and no phone signal. Because you're in a mountain. Sunderland are playing a derby game, and I'm obviously just desperately trying to check my phone. Not working because there's no phone signal. And apparently the only place you could get phone signal was if you went up the ski the ski lift to the top. And the thing, apparently there was phone signal up there. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. So I actually had to send an American bloke up there to check the score. And I was like, look, just type into Google Sunderland Newcastle result, because I knew the game was finished by that point. So it was about an hour, but obviously I'm not skiing. I'm stuck in this just this big room with nothing to do, waiting for the score to come anxiously. But the guy comes down from the ski lift like an hour and a half later, and he's like, "Oh, it said it finished Newcastle 0, Sunderland 3," and I was like, "You've got last year's score. Like that's what it was when we last played them last year."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, so annoying." So anyway, you end up coming back like late, like 9ish o'clock at night. And because of the situation I had with my phone dead, wasn't able to check the score. So I ended up getting in and then seeing it. We'd actually won the game 3-0. So I was given the correct scoreline. I had loads of messages of people of like, can't wait until you see the score. Amazing, unbelievable. And yeah, I got in and we'd actually won the game 3-0. And I told myself we hadn't won it 3-0 because we'd obviously done that there before. And the chances of you winning 3-0 2 years in a row in a derby game are slim to 0. And there we go.
Gus
we won
Poyet, is it? This was Gus Poyet. Is it? Yeah.
So
was that the same season? Was that the same season we had the miracle escape, or was that later on?
Yeah.
It was.
So this was like our last win before we went on that awful run, before we then went on the good run.
And just to show you how different our team is today from then, Liam Bridcut made his debut in that game.
Yeah, and he was good.
Was he?
He was good in that game.
Yeah,
he definitely was.
Okay.
I've watched that game back a few times, and he definitely was good. Worth the $2.5 million just for that.
We had a decent bench back then as well. Barini was on the bench. Oh no, Gardner, sorry. Seb Larson, Giaccherini. Remember Ignacio Scoccio?
Yeah. Football Manager legend.
Yeah, and Virginie. Yeah, not a bad bench back then. Right then, my second one is actually the 3-0 the season before that. The one that you thought that you had the result for. That's my favourite one. Yes, because that was I wasn't in the northeast that time. I was back. I was down here in London, and a friend of mine was down here from the northeast as well, and he's a Geordie. So I persuaded him. We couldn't go to the game, so let's go to the pub. You can wear your Newcastle shirt, and I'll wear my Sunderland shirt. And of course, he had an absolutely miserable time. And I still cannot get over there today that David Vaughan screamer for the 3-0 and
Which
the
is
Canio's
ever so slightly
news
offside.
No, he's not. He's not. It's an absolute screamer. It's the greatest thing that David Vaughan will ever have struck, I'm sure. And I had a wonderful time in the pub, and he had to sit next to me in the Sunderland shirt while I was leapt up 3 times all over the place in the game. It was great. And that kicked off the 6 in a row as well. So that's kind of, seminal for several reasons. But I do remember... it just must have been awful for him. I think he probably went home early, and I stayed out all night in the Sunderland shirt. So I remember a couple of years later, I said, "Do you want to go to the pub again to watch the game?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because we don't win anymore."
Yeah.
He said, "I'm sick of losing, so I'm not going with you." That was that, which was a fantastic feeling. I said, "Okay, I'll go somewhere else."
Yeah, there's nothing better than that. I remember actually not a Newcastle one, but I remember watching our League Cup semi-final against Man United with a Man United fan, and obviously they expect to win that game, and it was a weird game as well because it goes to extra time and we score like at the end of extra time, and then they score at the actual end of extra time, and then it's the worst penalty shootout known to man. And yeah, it's always fun when you win those occasions. Maybe that's why Sky invented that box thing you did, for that exact reason.
Maybe. We did have, and I have absolutely zero memory of this, for that 3-0 game, we did have a debut that game as well, in defence.
Yeah, we did. I know it. Caleb Van Yang.
I have no recollection of this at all. Who is this man?
We loaned him in that January.
Yeah? How many games did he play for us?
1. This was it.
That was it. Yeah.
He came on right at the end.
Two appearances, apparently.
Oh, 2, was it? Oh, well.
Yeah.
At least
no idea
on that one. Maybe he came on against Everton the next week.
Maybe. Zero recollection of Kedar McGann.
I remember Kedar. Legend.
Well, he must have enjoyed himself that day.
Yeah. Top legend.
Mangane. Is that him? Mangan?
Yeah.
I don't know. Surely I can't be the only person who's completely forgotten it.
Did we not loan him from like a Saudi team or something?
The only reason you know is because you made a crossword book, which you can plug right now at this point.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to, is Kader Van Yang in the crossword? He possibly is in the crossword book, to be fair. So
why else would you know him?
Yeah, well, I know him because I'm a weirdo, and remember things like this. So yeah, but yeah, crossword book, things like this will pop up. So if you want to test yourself, invest £10 at the LS shop. Is that a perfect time to segue to my number 2 memory? One of my favourite moments.
I think so.
I loved the Kieran Richardson free kick, and that whole era. And you have to remember as well, for me, I'm 14. Yeah, I'm 14 at that point, and I am living in an area that is 95% mags. It is full mags in Blythe, pretty much, apart from me and about 4 other people. So we've had to deal with, 0203, I'm like 9 years old, we get relegated with 19 points, 0506, I'm like 12, 13, and we get relegated with 15 points, they win 4-1 at the Stadium of Light. I have the sort of the 2-0 defeat I remember with Michael Owen the previous season. So I've had no joy in derbies in like sort of living memory. Obviously when I was young, the 2-1s and stuff I'm very, very little for. And this was like, for me, the first time we won a derby game where I was able to actually go to school and gloat and have one over on my Newcastle supporting friends. And it was just a perfect way to win a game. We get that free kick, and it's an unbelievable free kick.
It is amazing.
Never seen a free kick hit like that before. Yeah, same. It's weird.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a free kick like that one, where it's just like pure from that range as well, so close?
No, it was so close. The only comparable thing I saw in the Stadium Light was from a lot further out. Was Carlos Edwards' ripper against Burnley. That's the only comparable shot of speed and power, but not from that distance. I mean, he puts it in the same place that, is it right in the corner? But it's in the roof of the net, like Lefay's penalty the other day. But no, I've never seen a free kick like that. You don't get them that closely anymore, do you? Not often.
No.
And if you do, everyone tries to bend it around the wall. No one tries to absolutely leather it through.
People go under it,
Yeah.
maybe try and go under it, but yeah, you don't. You don't see someone able to hit it, sort of, it wall, sort of. It didn't go over the wall. It kind of went next to the wall, but directly sort of in the middle. And Given was just, sort of flabbergasted by its pace. It was windy as well that day, though. So like
Yeah.
he had the wind behind him, which maybe gave it an extra few mile an hour.
You don't get the wind behind you. It swirls in a whirlwind of
true.
crisp packets.
That's true. That is very, very true. But yeah, that was just a good day, and also like they were really on a downward. Like they had Joe Kinnear in there, and it felt like they were in a really bad spot, and we had Roy Keane, and it felt like we were in a good spot. I know it would kind of unravel as that season went on, but it felt like we were in a good spot. And I remember that day thinking, like, yeah, we're on the right path, and they're on the wrong path. So it was a good day.
Joe Kinnear went off with heart trouble after abusing the journalists, didn't he? And then he came back 8 months later as sporting director, and I think he came back a third time as well. It's all bizarre, his relationship with Ashley.
He was in there a few times. I remember. So my sister used to work. She was the wedding coordinator at Newcastle United for a few years. Not a football fan, so has no interest in the football stuff. And she would often say, "Oh, I bumped into someone. He said he was a really good Newcastle player, and I have no idea who it is." And then you'd find out it was like Alan Shearer or something. I mean, that is the level of her like knowledge of football. And she used to always say that she felt really bad for Joe Kinnear when he was the sport. I think he was like football director of football or something there, because nobody would talk to him in like the boardrooms and stuff. And she was like in there doing hosting as part of her job. And yeah, she was always like, "Oh, nobody ever speaks to him, so I do." So.
Visiting directors of other clubs want nothing to do with it.
Yeah, nobody, just poor Joe Kinnear sat in his own.
Yeah.
So I've always remembered
Wondering
that.
what he's doing.
Yeah, what about best goals?
There are some. Well, you have to have Defoe in there. Obviously, David Vaughan's not offside goal.
All the goals in that game were good, to be fair.
Yeah, they were. Although Sessegnon's goal, just sort of crawled in. It was a bit like Tommy Watson's. It was kind of slow motion. You just, is that actually going to make it? And somehow the keeper, falls in even slower stages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was that the Adam Johnson one, which obviously it's a shame it's him that scored it, but he scored that last minute one at St James's where we won 1-0. And they had the corner.
Phase of scoring loads of them. Yeah. Yes, I remember that. Yeah. Phillips in the rain, the first 2-1, when the ball gets parried and he turns around and picks the ball up again and just loops it to the back corner. And I don't know how many people do that in such a game of, crucial outcomes and, intensity. If you're that close and you come around for a second shot, I think most people absolutely try to bury it. And for him to loop it to the back post there, I think is really underrated. Because there are two defenders and a goalkeeper he puts it over to put it in that back corner. So I think that's a great goal.
To be fair.
Yeah. There are other games that I was not at that I have watched a lot. So I wasn't there, but I've watched it many times because it's online. The promotion playoff at St James's that with Gates and Gabbiadini, where they score. And it's 2-0, and they try to invade the pitch to get the game cancelled. I've watched that quite a lot, and I'm always quite surprised at how many people are wearing shirts in the crowd there, more than I think. I don't know why, but I always think that replica shirts are a very modern thing. There were people in the crowd wearing them then, so I've watched that game a lot. That's quite fun. I wasn't there. It's not really a memory. I was around at the time. I hadn't been to the first game yet.
I always find it difficult to. So I've watched obviously the historic stuff, but to do with Sunderland, but I find it difficult to watch stuff from before I was born. I don't know why. Like conceptually, it just doesn't work in my brain very well. It's like it almost doesn't exist because I wasn't alive. So my actual knowledge of football does stretch before sort of 1999, but 1999 is when I'm 5 years old, and that's when my love for football starts, and that's where like my watching of
Yeah.
football and what I feel comfortable watching is, and I struggle with stuff before that, and I don't know if that's just a me thing. I don't know if people generally feel that where they struggle to watch stuff that's
Maybe, but I think part of the reason I like that game, not only because of its significance to beat them in the playoffs and so importantly at their place. I think also it's they're the first players I remember seeing play. I wasn't at that game. I didn't see that game, but not long after that, I did see Gates and Gabbiadini. And subsequently, when I was a youngster going down to London to watch games, these players would sometimes, they were ex-players by then. They would occasionally be around. Gates used to frequently go down because he used to do the radio commentary and things. So, there are people who I did have a vague connection with, in that I saw them play and live, and I saw some of them afterwards as a supporter in my sort of 20s. It's a bit different to then look at that game and say, well, these are people I kind of know and grew up with, rather than to go, you only have to go a couple of years back and I don't really know what's going on then. So maybe, and I don't watch anything before that. So that's probably the earliest, derby game that I will watch that I wasn't at. And I don't really have any recollection of the others before then. But that's the only reason I can explain it with, really.
yeah. It's I sometimes there's a channel on YouTube called like is it Sunderland AFC highlights or TV or something. There's
Oh,
one
that's
that
my Twitter name, but thank you.
yeah. No,
No, there is one. There is one.
Yeah, because they put stuff on, and I do watch every
They
single
did.
thing they put on. So I've watched them put on things like I think we beat West Ham 6-0. Watched that one a couple of
Yeah.
times. So like I've seen things like that, but I think I just don't fish out stuff sort of before that kind of era. I mean, I'm very much a stadium I like baby. That's what I tell people when I do the tours, because I've only known the stadium I like. I haven't known Roker Park,
Yeah.
so I'm firmly
I
in that
remember
camp.
I do have one other recollection, not a game I was at, but I remember the 2005, we lost 3-2 at St James's Park. Stephen Elliott and Liam Lawrence scored. I remember that game. It's not particularly memorable for me, but I was in Australia at the time, and the game was on at some stupid hour of the morning. It was like 2 a.m. or something. I was trying to find somewhere to watch it and trying to find people to watch it with, and I couldn't. So I ended up watching it on my own in a sort of in the equivalent. It's an RSL club, which is like the equivalent of the British Legion out there. So I ended up watching it in the near empty British Legion bar on the second floor of some building, watching us get beat in the middle of the night, like early hours, and it was just a miserable experience. So it's not
Yeah.
one to remember. But everything was wrong about it. I was in a foreign country. I was on my own. We were in the worst bar, full of the odd old person sat around who had no interest in what I was watching, and there was no one to complain to. We got beat,
Yeah.
and it's like 3 or 4. It's 3 in the morning. I'm like, what am I doing? Let's go
You
on.
could have done with a watch along, so you could have watched the watch along alongside it, as a reference to this week's propaganda. Is there any other things you want to talk about when it comes to Derby games? Because there's one other topic that I think is quite interesting, which isn't to do with Derby Day memories, but more a logistical question that I think is interesting to tackle. Of what would happen if Sunderland and Newcastle played in a final, or a neutral game at Wembley? How do you think that would work? Do you think do you think the fans would coexist in London, or do you think it would be nuclear? Do you think there would be all sorts of issues? Because I would like to think that while we don't like each other as football clubs and we can have debates and we can poke fun, is there pure hatred there really between the masses of the fan groups? If I see a Newcastle fan walking down the street, I'm not throwing eggs at them. I'll talk to them and it's normal. But do you think it could actually logistically work? Like, how do you think they would actually get around doing that?
I think if you both ended up at Wembley together, the police would hate it. I mean, they would, that would be massive presence, I think. But I actually think Wembley's so organised and so well laid out with the designated areas that I think it would probably be okay. Um, the biggest problem and the biggest flashpoint would be Trafalgar Square the night before. I think you would get running battles there. and the only way is they would have to cordon it off, but then it just moves somewhere else. They'd all end up in Covent Garden, you know. And I do think you ply people with alcohol all day, and then give them a monument to plant their flag on, wherever that be. And I think this is a recipe for chaos. I mean, I would quite like to see it. I would quite like to see it. I might wander down to the fringes of it, but I think that would be some sight. I think to if the what would earth would they do? They would have to close it off and not let anybody there, because there would be pitch battles at Trafalgar Square. I'm certain of it.
I think there would be big issues as well, because obviously somebody like me, I mean, I have no interest in bother. So if Sunderland were playing Newcastle in an FA Cup final, say, I would not. I would make a purpose to not go out and about, because I wouldn't want to have, like when we went to the playoff final, I'm out and about wearing my Sunderland top, going into bars and pubs, and I'm not thinking anything of it. But I think
Yeah.
I would be really sort of on edge about it, and
Well,
probably would just be like, no, I'm staying in the hotel bar, and I'm just gonna stick local.
you wouldn't be safe there. I mean, there'd be all sorts of mixed hotels with all
No,
sorts of
that's
people
true.
from the northeast in all the hotels, and all of the trains down would be mixed as well. It would be absolute carnage. People would be drinking the entire time. How do you run a mixed train full of everybody coming down from the northeast supporting two teams, shouting at each other and drinking all day? And what happens in all of the hotels where you've got mixed people? You're going to get pockets where some people are isolated, and they get brayed or something by some of the drunk mags. That's going to
I
happen.
I think that this is also like an issue. So when Liverpool and Everton, say, which are from the same city, they don't hate each other. It's not like pure hatred, and I don't think Man United and Man City have pure hatred for each other. And Tottenham and Arsenal are used to playing in London, so it's
Yeah.
different. And the London derbies are a bit different. In the Birmingham and Villa, I don't know what the issues would be for them, but I don't think that derby's as toxic. I know Rangers and Celtic, they obviously both play in Glasgow and coexist. So for them, it's probably not as much. I don't know if there's another derby in the UK that would have this much of a logistical issue.
I think it would be a problem, and it's partly because we don't actually share the city, so we can all go home to our own city. That's part of the problem. We're not used to having to share space like that, and we don't meet where we have to share space. Um, and I think that part of the problem, and I'm really pleased this year that they're not doing this, but part of the problem in the past has been the fact that the police bubbled and kettled everybody for years and years. And there were rules where you couldn't go to a game unless you went with the bubble. And I think that just makes the animosity worse. So I'm pleased that this year that Newcastle fans are able to come to our game of their own choosing, at their own pace and time, and make their own way there. And I hope that works out all right. That's only the one game I went to, the 2-1 win. I went there myself. Did I go there? No, I didn't. No, I've been there. I must have been there for another game then, because I have walked into that stadium myself. It must have been the year after that. Yeah, I can't remember
Well,
what that
you
result was.
referenced the Kevin Ball 2-1, which you've got the year mixed
Yeah,
up, so we get the other 2-1.
but I remember there was one game where I made my own way there. I can't remember why I didn't travel with other people, with my friends, but some of them were there. But I made my own way. I must have been doing something or late from somewhere, and I got the train to Newcastle, and I walked up to the stadium, and I walked into the away end myself, and all of the buses that had been on the police escort were there, and I was able to do that. But then, not long after that, you couldn't do that. You couldn't walk into the game yourself. Obviously, I was wearing no colours being on my own, walking into that end. But
Would you
yeah,
wear colours they'll
that's
go into? So, say for example, we were playing at Wembley in a final against Newcastle. I mean, would you be wary about that? Because I would be.
I'd wear my colours.
Would you? I don't know
I
if I
would.
would.
Well, I mean, I definitely couldn't run away from anybody, but a good proportion of them would. A good proportion of them wouldn't be bothered to chase me either. So
Yeah. I just
yeah,
think
I
that,
would wear my
like,
colours.
fundamentally, if you've got 90,000 people coming from the northeast, 45,000 each, and if you've got a ticket, the chances are you're a real hardcore fan of both. You've probably got a season ticket and stuff. The vast majority of people are not willing to get into fights and stuff. Like, I think it would just be a small amount of things like Trafalgar Square and Covent Garden the night before. I actually imagine on the day of the game, I don't think you would actually see much bother. I think it would be the day before, and I think there would be bother in the northeast, maybe at like pubs and stuff. But that'll happen anyway on Derby days. I
I
mean, the
think,
pub at the bottom of my
yeah.
street, which is split. Christ, that'll be a nightmare on Sunday.
I think Wembley would be fine. I think that's all really well organised, and they allocate people places. I think that would be fine, and people would generally stay in the side they were allocated in. So I don't think it'd be fun. It'd just be trains, hotels, Trafalgar Square, Covent Garden. You have people drinking all day for close to 18 hours. I think it's a recipe for disaster. I don't know if I'm capable of drinking for 18 hours a day. I'd give it a go though.
You'd try.
I'd try. Yeah.
No.
We'd all end up like that Charlton playoff the next day, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We're all hungover and unable to sing anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was really bad. That one, the League One playoff final. It was dead. Weird game. Very weird game. Anyway, I think that's just about sums up. We have plenty of good memories against Newcastle, haven't we? Considering I don't think we've actually probably beaten a team more than Newcastle in the last 15, 16 years. I mean, we do have a very good record against them.
Maybe we have, but obviously we're inclined to remember those ones. There just happen to have been a lot of them recently.
Yeah, but
you know how many we've lost?
If we take it from 2011, which is when they beat us 1-0 at the Stadium of Light with Ryan Taylor. If we go from that point on, we've only lost one game, which is the FA Cup game, and I think we've won 6.
Yeah, but even you can go back even further than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. In the last 15 games, we've lost 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, recent
How
experience.
How far does that go back to then?
That goes back to 2008.
Right, so even as well, if you included the 2-2-1s, we drew the home games, we drew the next year at St James's Park, but lost the next 3 after that. So
we did have a string. We did have a string of losses. We had
we lost 5 in a row, didn't we?
We did lose 5 in a row. Yeah,
not 6.
One of them
though.
is that. Not 6. No.
No.
So yeah, I mean, really, the recipe for winning at the weekend is that we should have sacked Bris before Liverpool.
That's true.
And got a new manager in.
Maybe just sack
Dick
him.
Advocaat. Dick Advocaat didn't he get Cape Verde to the World Cup or something?
Yeah, that's a strange one though, because every single player that they've got was born in the Netherlands.
Well, good for Dick Advocaat then.
Yeah,
but I didn't know he was still. I didn't know he was still in management. I thought his wife had made him retire.
Well, yeah, because we had to send our flowers when he was. I mean, he's been eternally in his 70s. He must have been in his 70s for the last 20 years. He was old when he was Rangers manager in like 2000. So
he guided us to a victory over the Mags as well, didn't he?
He did. Well, every manager did in that era, didn't they? It was a rite of passage. But anyway, we'll wrap this one up. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll have our Newcastle propaganda and our Newcastle preview coming up. I'll also be interviewing a Newcastle journalist, and we're fortunately not getting the fisticuffs because it's on StreamYard, so we'll not be in person, face to face.
I would like to hear in the comments what other people's best Derby memory is and their oldest Derby memory that they went to. There's got to be some old ones out there. Yeah,
good signposts. Well, yeah, there will be some good old ones in there, and I think we've touched on some of the key ones, but there'll be moments, that are underrated. Things like when I was on a skiing trip, people have things like that all the time. You being in Australia, people have them sorts of ones where you've had to watch it from a weird place, or you haven't been able to watch it and whatnot. So, yeah, interested to see what people think. And good signposting. I forgot to do that. I should have done that at the start, really. Signposted people to put their best moments in, but I'm sure they'll do it naturally anyway.
If they get this far.
We'll catch you all later in the week.